with drawing our network diagram, we need to know the dependency relationships among the activities. So let's take a look at the information that we have. In the first column, we've got all the activities that we are supposed to complete in our projects. In the second column, we've got the predecessors, and in the third column, it's the number of days that it takes to complete each activity. I'm sure some of you are wondering, what is the predecessor? The predecessor is the activities that are supposed to be completed before we can get started or move on to the next activity. As you can see, activity A has no predecessor. That means that A is our starting point, and activity B and C share the same predecessor, which is A. That means once we are complete with activity A, we can get started with activity B and C. And since they share the same predecessor, that means they can be started simultaneously. So let's get started with drawing our network diagram. Since our starting point is A, we'll draw a node representing A. And then, now that A is done, we can move to activity B and C. So we'll draw activity B over here. And activity C over here. The arrows that I'm drawing, they indicate the relations between the various activities. They also show the manner in which the activities should occur. Now that we are done with activity B and C, we can move to D. And as you can see, the predecessor for D is B. So we will draw D over here. We can now move to activity E, and the predecessor is also B. So we'll draw E over here. Now, since we are done with activity E, we can move to F, and the predecessor for F is activity C, and we are already done with activity C, so let's get started with F. We'll draw F over here. Okay, now we can move to activity G, and the predecessors for G are E and D. So we can draw G over here. And the predecessors are E and D. Activity H's predecessors are E and F, which are over here. So that means we are going to draw activity H over here. And the predecessors are E and F. Okay, now we can move to I, and the predecessor for I is G. So we will draw I over here. Okay, now we can move to activity J, and the predecessor is H. So we're going to draw activity J over here. Okay, last but not least, we've got activity K, and the predecessors are I and J. So we will draw activity K over here. And the predecessors are I and J. There you have it. This is our network diagram. Now that we are done drawing the network diagram, we can get started with the calculations, but I will highly suggest for you guys to draw a node that has the labels of all the things that you guys are required to calculate. So in the top left corner, we will have the early starts. In the middle, we'll have the duration and the early finish. And then over here, you will have the name of the activity. Which will be A, B, C, D, or whatever the case might be. In the bottom left, we will have the late start and the total slack and the late finish. Okay, please bear in mind there are various methods that you can use to work out all of these things, but I prefer this one because it's much easier and time saving, and we all know when you're busy writing an exam, time management is very important. Now that we've made the sections in our notes, we're going to go right ahead and fill in all the number of days that it takes to complete the activity. Now that we've added the number of days in all of the activities, we can get started with calculating the early start and the early finish. To work out the early finish, we are going to take the early start and add it with the duration. Since activity A is our starting point, the early start is going to be 0. Then we are going to say 0 plus 3 equals 3. Then the early finish for A is going to become the early start for B and C. So we are going to do the forward pass. So 3 will come over here and 3 will also come over here. 3 plus 2 equals 5 and 3 plus 6 equals 9. So we are going to carry over 5 to D and also 5 to E and then 9 to F. So 5 plus 1 is 6, 5 plus 4 is 9, 9 plus 16 is 25. Okay. As you can see, G has two predecessors, which is D and E. And I'm sure you're wondering now, okay, which one am I going to carry over? A lot of students tend to get confused here and lose a lot of marks. So with forward pass, you are always going to pick the maximum number. Please remember the maximum number. Don't unnecessarily lose marks. I cannot stress this enough. So since 9 is the maximum number, we're going to carry it over to G. And then here again, H has two predecessors, which is E and F, and the maximum number is 25. So 9 plus 5 equals 14, and 25 plus 9 equals 34. We're going to move 14 over here, and we're going to move 34 over here. 14 plus 2 equals 16, and 34 plus 6 equals 40. And then once again, as I had explained, when we do the forward pass, you always pick the maximum number. And the maximum number in this case is 40. So 40 plus 7 equals 47. We are going to work out our late start and our late finish. We are going to use the backward method. So to start off, we're going to take 47 and put it over here as our late finish. And then to work out our late start, we are going to take our late finish and subtract it with the duration. So we're going to say 47 minus 7 equals 40. So the late start for K is going to become the late finish for J and I. So we'll move 40 over here. And we're going to say 40 minus 2 equals 38. And 40 minus 6 equals 34. Okay, so we're going to move 38 over here. And we are going to say 38 minus 5 equals 33. And 34 minus 9 equals 25. Okay, now we're going to take 33 and move it to D. And then as you can see, E is the predecessor for G and H. Okay, please listen carefully. I can't stress this enough. When we do the backward pass, you always pick the minimum number. So when we move to the right, you pick the maximum number, and when we move to the left, you pick the minimum number. Okay, so the minimum number here is 25. So 25 is going to come over here. And also here, it is 25. So 33 minus 1 equals 32. And 25 minus 4 equals 21. And 25 minus 16 equals 9. Then we're going to carry over 9 over here. And since B is the predecessor for D and E, we're going to pick the minimum number, which is 21. And we're going to say 21 minus 2 equals 19. And 9 minus 6 equals 3. And then over here again, over here again, A is the predecessor for B and C. So we are going to pick the minimum number, which is 3, and 3 is going to come over here, and 3 minus 3 equals 0. So there you have it. Now we have calculated our late start and our late finish. The total slack equals our late finish minus the early finish, or the late starts minus the early starts. So we are going to say 47 minus 47 equals 0. 40 minus 40 equals 0. 40 minus 16 equals 24. 34 minus 34 equals 0. 38 minus 5 equals 24. And then 33 minus 6 equals 27. And then 25 minus 9 equals 16. And 25 minus 25 equals 0. And 21 minus 5 equals 16. 9 minus 9 equals 0. And 3 minus 3 equals 0. There you have it. We've worked out our total slack for all our activities. In the final step, we are going to point out the critical path. This is like the easiest thing. It's 3 marks, guys. The critical path is the path that has no slack time. So let me just point it out. You just have to look where the zeros are at. So this, so it's A, C, F, H, J, and K. So where I have written or pointed or indicated with arrows in red, that is our critical path. That is the longest path, and if there happens to be any delay in any of these activities, that means on that the project duration will get extended.
Sometimes you might get a question that requires you to calculate the person days. So they'll say that you should assume that only one person is working on this project instead of 5 people. Don't panic when you see this. All that you will do is you will take all the activities that are not on the critical path and add them with the expected duration. So basically, you will say 47 plus 14 days equals 61 days. So it will take one person 61 days to complete all of these activities. I would also like to add some extra information when it comes to activities that have some slack time. We will use activity B as an example. As you can see, the early start for activity B is 3 and the late start is 19. That means that this activity can begin anytime between these days and there will be no delay in the entire project. Thank you for your time. I hope you learned something new today. If you would like to see more tutorials like this, please like our Facebook page. And if you would like additional information on the academic and business services that we provide, you can go to commercecoach.co.za.